Good Sunday evening. Good Sunday evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of COSA-TV. Greg Blanchard, great to be joined once again by Mark McKelvey. We've got a really busy show for you tonight. We're going to have Bill O'Donnell here, the president of COSA, to talk a little bit about the current situation in Ontario and provide any updates that he's available to do this evening. And then we're going to be joined by a number of conditioners who had excellent years in 2020. We've got Rob Fellows, Mark Stacey joining us, and from south of the border, Yannick Gingras and Nancy Tactor. They're both going to join us a little bit later in the show. So it's going to be a lot of fun, Mark. And right off the top, let's talk a little bit about last night for Nancy Tactor. We're going to hear from her later on this evening, but she won almost everything there was to win in this year's Dan Patch Awards.
Yeah, it certainly did feel like that. Of course, we all knew that Tall Dark Stranger was likely going to take home those 3-year-old Pacing Colt of the Year honors and Pacer of the Year honors. But he also was named Horse of the Year, second time that Nancy Tactor has trained a Horse of the Year. And you think about it, just in her young career, to have a few Horse of the Years under her resume now, or on her resume now, very impressive. But Tall Dark Stranger, what a fun year it was to track him all along. He danced all the big dances, one of the grittiest horses we've seen in quite some time, now off to stand stud at Hanover Shoe Farms. But it was a big, big night for the Tactor barn and their entire operation. Manchego winning another award, and great news recently that she's not going to be retired. She's actually going to come back this season, and we'll get to see her renew her rivalries with Atlanta. Can't wait to ask Nancy about that a little later on.
So yes, we will hear from her, and things were done differently this year, as you might expect, with the Dan Patch Awards. They were all announced last evening on the Meadowlands simulcast show prior to their live program. So we'll talk to Nancy a little bit about that, and again, the year she had, and join Yannick as well. Rob Fellows, Mark Stacey standing by, but our first guest is getting ready to join us now, and that is Bill O'Donnell, and we will welcome in Bill to the show, the president, of course, of COSA. And Bill, here we are. It's almost a year ago now, back last spring. Racing got shut down. We thought, or we certainly hoped, it was going to be a one-time thing, but here we are back here again. So maybe talk about, first of all, the differences between the shutdown this time versus last time. All right, we'll jump in here. And Bill, I think, is muted. We don't have Bill's audio, so let's get to that in a second. While we're waiting for Bill to get reconnected here, folks, if you're tuning in tonight, first of all, and you've got a question or two, send them along. We would certainly like to hear from you. We'll try and get Bill to answer a couple of questions from our audience tonight as well, if we can. So we're going to get back to him in a moment. And if you've got questions for any of the guests that we have coming up tonight, please let us know, and we'll try and pass those along during our upcoming segments. So while we're waiting for Bill to rejoin, Mark, again, here we are in shutdown mode again. It's, I know, frustrating for horse people. We'll hear a little bit more about that. But even for a guy like yourself, you work in the industry. You're used to being at the track every night, covering the sport in your capacity there. And it's really different, and it's starting to get a little bit frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think last night's a perfect example when you're watching races from the Meadowlands, and you're seeing 15 races there, and you're just wishing we could be racing here in Ontario, and you're watching every night of the week another track because you're missing it. And I know some people took advantage of this break, and I think if you thought about it at the start, if the break was just going to be 28 days, I think a lot of people understood. And while they weren't pleased and we really wanted to continue racing, you take it as an opportunity just to freshen up and come back ready to go. However, we're not quite sure where things stand at this moment. Of course, with the recent increased restrictions here in Ontario, we're now looking into February potentially, unless something else was to change. So be interested to pick Bill O'Donnell's mind on exactly what he thinks of the entire situation, and maybe some of the questions that he's receiving from the horse racing community and the horse people out there. And, you can understand everyone's frustration, not just in our industry, but across the province. So we'll have to wait and see, of course. But I think that frustration definitely definitely grows when you're watching racing from south of the border or in other parts of Canada as they've been able to continue.
And, on that vein, Bill and his role with COSA, Ontario Racing, important to, keep in communication with the industry as best they can. And what about from the Woodbine Entertainment standpoint? I know Jim Lawson, has been very vocal. And if there's one thing I think he's gained a lot of respect for in the last year is his level of constant communication within the industry, but then outside the industry, trying to reach media, reaching out to the politicians to try and keep that dialogue alive and relate the importance of racing. So, within the Woodbine family, is that continue even though you're on lockdown?
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest thing is to continue reminding those, whether it be the powers that be or everyone else in this industry, that we have a professional sport, a world-class racing product, an entertainment product. That's one thing I think has to be considered, because you hear a lot of talk about the NHL being allowed to play and, the government saying, well, it's an entertainment product, and with us all in lockdown, people do need entertainment. Well, I can tell you right now, horse racing is indeed an entertainment product, and it is a professional sport. You watch the numbers that come through every single night, wagering-wise, viewership-wise, and I think it has to receive that respect. So I think that's the one thing that you've seen coming out of Woodbine and from Jim Lawson is that transparency. I mean, he is right there. He's banging on the doors along with everyone else, and of course, you saw that call in the last couple of weeks for horse people to reach out to their local politicians and to try and get that rallying going. And I think the response has just been great. And while, we haven't heard a whole lot just yet, I don't think it's gone unnoticed.
Yeah, I mean, horse racing is one of many industries, I'm sure, looking for answers from the government, which, I don't envy the position they are in. This is something that, the whole world is dealing with. Nobody could anticipate, and there's no playbook for how to deal with it. But I know there's frustration certainly in the industry when you see a professional sport like the NHL able to conduct business and get back up and running and racing, forced to continue to sit on the sidelines. But again, you can only do what we can do at this point in time, and keep beating the door and getting that message out there. We're waiting to try and get Bill back on the line. Curtis, do we have Bill ready to reconnect? All right, just some technical issues, of course. So, so we'll get to Bill again in a moment. We want to urge you again to have questions. If you've got questions, pass them along to us. And, we'll try and get Bill to answer a couple of those as we get him ready for an update here. So, again, different scenario last spring when we shut down. So we bring Bill back in here in a moment. We talked about the differences. It was a different time of year when 3-year-olds were getting ready to come back. Now it's happening when some of these horses are on the sidelines and the scheduling's a little bit different. So Bill, welcome back, first of all. And wanted to ask you about the differences between when we shut down last spring and now in terms of trying to establish if we're going to be allocating some of that purse money to horse people in the province, how that'll come into play.
Well, first of all, yeah, there's not much difference really, other than the sire stakes and the big stakes during the summer. But I think a lot of people have, shut a lot of those younger horses down, getting ready for the series is in the winter, that the new series is, and we got quite a few entries on those. So it's it's tough for people, especially this time of year too. This is not April, May now, where your farm tracks are going to be a lot better, and you can get good miles into them there. You're going to have Mohawk to rely on to train your faster miles. And I sit on the task force from OR that's the same one as last year in the spring, and I think we got December pretty much figured out. It's similar to last spring. We missed a week of racing, so it's like a horse that missed a start. So that'll be $300, per horse. That was only through the whole province. Not that would have been Indigo, but any horse that had a chartered line within the last 60 days, like November, December. And then tomorrow we got another meeting in the morning. We've met 3 or 4 times now. Next meeting in the morning, tomorrow morning. I think we're just about there, and we're just waiting for the approval from the government, and that's the final one. Everybody's signed off on it. So once they sign off on it, we're good to start issuing some checks to some people.
Bill, I mean, obviously no one's happy right now. There's a lot of frustration out there, but in your position, maybe take us through what a typical day has been over the last couple of weeks or since this most recent shutdown. I would imagine lots of phone calls, and I would imagine a lot of long conversations with horse people that are reaching out wanting to know the latest information.
Well, yeah, you get a lot of that, and I don't mind taking any calls, and I answer all of them, although I've read in a few places that people are trying to get in touch with me and can't. I think they have my wrong number because I never have not answered a call yet. So, yeah, we get a lot of calls and a lot of ideas. Everybody's got an idea how to get it started back up, and I wish we all could have been part of it all shutting it down, but we weren't, right? And I think if we'd have just kept right on racing, I don't think anybody would have noticed, really, other than you get a few naysayers. And through the summer, we raced the 7 months. We had no issues whatsoever, no outbreaks. We raced at all the racetracks in Ontario. And so when it comes to pass that we are ready to open up, I hope that we're first and foremost one of the places that will be opened up.
And Bill, you mentioned the task force that's in place. Can you tell us who's involved with that? And what, like you say, what's been going on behind the scenes to try and get something done as quickly as you can?
Well, first of all, it's OR. Through ORs, it's Jonathan Zamet, Jack Hayes, and Sarah Young, myself, Ian Fleming, Bill McClinchy, and I think Jessica was on the last time too. We kind of got a mix. We thought of everybody on there, I think, and it's the same group that was last spring. And so you want to call it a template. We have a template to fall back on or precedent set. So the whole thing was what we've been doing. Like first you had to get the numbers together, the official numbers. The money stays at OLG and gets moved over, I think, on the 10th of every month. So obviously we had the December money. We don't have the January money yet. That's what we're trying to get approval for to get and to move that over to OR. And they can start, sending out the money for them. So, and we've met 3 or 4 times, and I know, Jim is Lawson. He's been trying to get in touch with everybody, and that you need to. And so is Jack Hayes at OR.
And in terms of communication with government, it appears from the outside that there hasn't been much coming back the way of the industry. Has that been the case? And again, understanding that the government, I'm sure, is inundated not only by our industry, but by industries all across the province with questions and wondering what's happening.
Exactly. We've sent letters and, with asks to, allow us to open up. And right now, you don't get much response. They're pretty busy, I guess, too. And like Premier Ford said, he's listened to his health people. And he's following their lead, right? So, and any number of people that have contacted me that have sent letters, they send back. It's just kind of a form letter, if you would, answering everybody. And it's one thing about government; they will answer you and they will meet with you. So, not at this point, but most times they will. So that's what they're elected for.
Yeah, from past situations, whether that was in the last decade or whatnot, but from your dealings with those at the government level, do you think they completely understand the impact that our industry has across this province and the amount of people that are impacted?
Well, going back, like you said, back to the cancellation of the slots, there was so much discrepancies in our numbers and their numbers and, what the real impact was until we got the panel of the 3 guys, John and Elmer and John Snowblin. And John Snowblin was aware, and Elmer to a point too. But John Wilkinson, I think his eyes were open to come to Mohawk or go to the racetracks and just see how many people it involved and the expense it involved. And we're not. It's not a sport of kings for sure. It's just a hard-working bunch of people, or blue-collar people that work and try to make a living. And I think they understood that, the ones that came. I think their eyes were open, but now, you got a whole new government and you're trying to educate new people all the time with the new Minister of Finance now, right? That has not been involved the last number of years, couple of years anyway. So it's not easy. Not everybody comes to the horse races, right? So.
Right. So just to confirm, Bill, at this point, it looks like you'll have something maybe in the next day or two to announce officially about some of this relief funding in the terms of the purses and allocating that. And will there be anything put in place? God forbid, we have to go through this again. We certainly hope this will be the last time. But if we did, will there be a mechanism in place to, make that process a little bit quicker next time?
Yeah, and that's been an ongoing thing since April too, right? Was to get the agreement amended that if there is something like this again, that we won't have to go through all this. We could just sit down and do it a lot quicker. And even once we get approval, then you can't overstep where you're at. And once you get this approval, then you got to start writing checks and mailing checks, and it becomes it's a job. It's a job when you start mailing out 2,500 to 3,000 checks, right? So.
Well, listen, Bill, we thank you for coming on, and we want to remind people to stay tuned to Standard Canada, obviously the Ontario Racing website, social media platforms, COSA as well. And yes, let's hope we've got something really concrete to tell people about in the next day or two. Good luck at that meeting tomorrow, and thanks again for taking some time to join us today.
Okay. Did you want me to stay on? You said something about some questions. Are there any questions that you want me to answer, or anybody have any questions?
Don't think so, but I'll let Curtis. We've got some comments, but if we get some questions, tell you what, Bill, we'll forward them on to you through email. How does that sound?
Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Have a good night, guys.
Again, Bill. All right. And we will take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by our first special guest of the night, Mark Stacey, standing by next on COSA-TV.
Winback Farm of Ontario is home to 7 outstanding pacers, including Better Than Cheddar, a proven sire of Ontario Sire Stakes Gold winners. 3 rich performers stand their second season in 2021, including O'Brien Award winner Jimmy Freight, Horse of the Year McWicked, and O'Brien Award winner Stag Party. Also standing, Millionaires Art Spink, Better's Delight, and Shadow Play. For more information, it's winbackfarm.com.
Harness Racing Update is the sport's most comprehensive and timely news source. HRU covers the sport from all angles with news, features, photography, opinion, and analysis of racing. Also, HRU covers breeding and sales, as well as industry stories you need to know. It's all delivered by a deep, diverse, and talented team of writers and photographers. And the best news is that it's free to subscribe. Subscribe to HRU today for free at harnessracingupdate.com and see what everyone is talking about.
And welcome back to this Sunday edition of COSA-TV. Greg Blanchard and Mark McKelvey, wonderful to have you with us tonight, and welcoming in another of our special guests joining us tonight from his home in Lansdowne, Ontario. We welcome Mark Stacey. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm great, thanks.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking some time to join us tonight. Another excellent year for the Stacey stable in 2020. For those who don't maybe know fully how your operation is working these days, maybe explain to us a bit of a split operation between Lansdowne and closer to Mohawk, where son Sean runs the operation there.
I split it. It's kind of a family affair with us, and at home here in Lansdowne, Clark, my youngest son, he He's in charge of breaking all the babies. He gets the most everything that goes to Guelph to race at Mohawk. Eventually, or initially starts here in Lansdowne through Clark. Once we get them developed enough, then they head up that way and finish off there and race at Mohawk and hopefully even bigger and better thing.
Was there ever a time where Clark or Sean were not going to get into the harness racing industry and follow in your footsteps?
Sean loved these horses right from the time he could talk and walk. And I can remember when he's like 2 or 3 years old, riding on a little play horse with a whip in his hand and stuff. I always thought he was going to be a driver, but he grew a little bit too tall. But no, Sean had the passion right from the start, and he's. But Clarky, I wasn't so sure about him. It was kind of mid-teens with him. He was more into hockey and social life. But once he got going on it, he got kind of hooked on. He's pretty good at it too. He does a real good job breaking these babies.
All right. Well, again, Mark Stacey, our special guest, and just looking back at his career on the training side, almost 1,700 career training wins and 24 million in purses over that time. A familiar face in the Ontario Sire Stakes program, where he has won multiple Johnson Cups as a leading trainer in that category. And Sean, you mentioned him, won his first Johnson Cup this past season, Mark. So that had to be special for you, something that you had won several times now, watching your son take home the hardware.
Oh, for sure. Like Sean, I don't think there's a harder worker anywhere than what Sean is. And, at one point, I think we had close to 50 horses in Guelph, and he's overlooking all of them. And it was well deserved.
Now, how about the fact that we see Sean's name now listed as the trainer when you look in the program pages? Maybe tell us a little bit about kind of the decision you made there and the transition that took place over the last couple of seasons. I guess before we came on air, you were joking, though, that you're maybe as busy as ever. So maybe you can take us a little bit behind the scenes on kind of what the program is that you guys have got in place right now.
Yeah, well, I spend most of the winters here in Lansdowne, so Sean's in the paddock all the time. And he's making, the last minute calls all the time. So I said, it might as well be in his name because he's doing most of the work up there. I'm back and forth. But so we switched it into his name a couple of years ago. It's basically the same outfit. It's like I said, a family affair that between Sean, myself, and Clark, and then my wife, she does the bookworks and stuff. It takes us all to do it all.
Quickly, Mark, what about your own background? It's natural that Clark and Sean would get involved following in your footsteps. What about your own foray into harness racing? Did you come from a racing family yourself?
Not really, no. When I was, 6, 7 years old, my father went to the track with some friends. He liked it. He decided he was going to buy a couple $500 horses or whatever at the time. And I used to go with my father everywhere. So we started together, and we raced cheap horses right around Kingston area, the odd one if it was good enough in Ottawa. And I don't think at that time we ever got good enough to get to Greenwood or anything, but we did get to Montreal the odd time. And as the years went on, it just grew from there. And I was always passionate about it. I was at the track from 6 years old on. Couldn't wait to get my driver's license and stuff. And really didn't work for anybody in particular, but just read lots and watched lots and tried to learn from there.
That's pretty amazing because, most top trainers had, that strong influence, somebody that they worked for, their mentor. So interesting that you're kind of a self-made man in that regard. And, the success you've had speaks for itself. And you've been associated with some of the very best, certainly Ontario-bred performers that we've seen over the years. And we're going to take a little trip back memory lane with a couple of the big guns that you had over the years in your operation. And the first one is Sunshine Beach, who now is making a name for himself in the stallion ranks in Ontario. And there's a good look at him at Sealster Farms, his new home. Talk about him, his early days on the racetrack, and was he kind of an instant hit? Was he one that took a while to come into himself as a racehorse?
Yeah, he kind of did. He showed ability. Like when I started him at 2, he did show that he had high speed. But he could get out of gear a lot. He crossfired a little bit. He just wasn't fully developed where he could go with the Grand Circuit horses. I think he did win a 52 as a 2-year-old, but just couldn't complete it to race with the top. So we shut him down quite early and brought him back at 3, and he grew bigger, stronger, and the rest was history. After that, every start he raced, he got better and better.
And one of the most memorable races, of course, of his career was one that took place south of the border at Pocono Downs. It was the Battle of Brandywine, and I'm sure that race holds a special place in your heart.
Yeah, that was a very exciting race, a very special win. But probably the best race he ever went was in the Breeders' Crown final. The week before in the elimination, he had the lead, and a horse in the first turn lost the head number. So in the last turn, my horse hopped about 4 feet in the air over top of it, got out of gear, and finished second. Because of that, we drew the 8-hole in the final, or 9-hole, or whatever, and parked the whole mile with no cover, and gave Captain all he was worth that night as well. I think we finished second, just beat, but he was a real nice horse. And even at the end of the year, he struggled with a bladder stone that made him bleed all the time. And he raced right through that and won I think it was the Progress Pace. And I think he finished second in the Matron and stuff. But he did have some problems internally, but he overcame all that and was a very nice 3-year-old.
And you mentioned the captain and the horse you're talking about, of course, Captain Treacherous, one of the greatest 3-year-old colt pacers we've seen over the last couple of decades. So it wasn't as though Sunshine Beach was facing a soft crop, that is for sure. And this is the Battle of Brandywine. We're going to take a look back to that. And this was the first defeat that year for the great Captain Treacherous. And again, it comes at the hands of Sunshine Beach. So we'll have a look back and then get to Mark's reflections afterward.
Very contested early on as 6 of them leave. Lone Wolf Courier at the pylon, slight edge. Sunshine Beach right there, along with Makatso out 3 wide. Captain Treacherous just a tick off the top 3 there, 4th. Then to the inside it comes Wake Up Peter, Twilight Bonfire 6th, then Odds On Equileus, Beach Memories, and the early trailer is Some Kind of Beach. The quarter is 25-3. Lone Wolf Courier has the early edge for John Campbell, and now Sunshine Beach pulls for Brian Sears, sensing weakness in the leader, and he takes over with Lone Wolf Courier back to 7. There goes Captain Treacherous, 1-5, first over into the clubhouse turn. Following that move is Twilight Bonfire. Also Makatso tried to get out there. They're jumbled up. Inside 6th, Wake Up Peter, then Odds On Equileus, Beach Memories, and at the back there still Some Kind of Beach. The half 53-3, 28 even, second panel as Sunshine Beach desperately trying to hold off the charge of Captain Treacherous, who's just about even now, going that long first over journey. In behind the hot pace there, Makatso is second over on the outside, a length back. Lone Wolf Courier getting a breather in the pocket. Third over now, 6th there. That's Miller with Twilight Bonfire. Wake Up Peter still saving ground. 3/4, 120-3. Sunset Beach trying desperately to string out Captain Treacherous, who's not going anywhere here. And now it's Makatso gearing up outside. Lone Wolf Courier still in the pocket. Top of the stretch, Sunshine Beach and Captain Treacherous. They're still going at it. Sunshine Beach, Captain Treacherous. It's close. Sunshine Beach, Captain Treacherous to the line. A photo finish. Too close to call. Sunshine Beach and Captain Treacherous inseparable.
That was a big, big mile back in 2013 on the 5/8 mile oval, 147-4. And going toe-to-toe with the great Captain Treacherous and knocking him off on that night. And, that's the measuring stick, right, Mark? When you can beat a horse of that stature and beat him fair and square on the night, big, big feather in your colt's cap.
Oh, for sure. You know, he raced at the Grand Circuit level for quite a few starts, and you know, did more than his fair share with them too. And like I said, he went with Captain 2 or 3 times, and he beat him that time. He was with him 2 or 3 other times, and he was of that caliber for sure. That was a great drive by Brian Sears. Coming around the last turn, I said we still have a something in our hole here, an ace in the hole, as we haven't pulled our earplugs yet. As soon as I seen them come out, you see it take off, and he got there.
Now, when you go back and you look at that 3-year-old season for Sunshine Beach, what stands out to me, though, is the fact that you talked about the fact that there were some issues later on in the year, but there he was early December winning the Progress at Dover Downs. And it's not too often that we can see horses win the Progress that were competing in the first Grand Circuit events back in early summer. So, I mean, does that just speak volumes to how tough this horse was, that he was able to make it right through there to December and to win his final start of the year?
Yeah, he was a very tough horse. Like I said, he overcame that bladder stone, and where he in between warm ups, he'd come back to the paddock and he'd pee blood and stuff, and it always made me worry. We weren't even sure whether we should take him to Dover for them races, but the money was just too good not to, and he was successful. But you know, I think a lot of the reason he stayed so long in the year, he was a colt with great conformation, and you know, great conditioning to you know, to stay sound and stuff, and that helped.
So now, Mark, he's standing stud in Ontario. He's really cemented himself, I think, as one of the top OSS pacing stallions at this point in time. And you have a number of his offspring that you guys race. Would you say at this point, has he met expectations you had for him as a stallion, or is he still trying to get where you think he could be?
In fairness to him, I don't think he caught the mares to maybe put him on a Grand Circuit level. His first year, he bred a lot of cheaper mares, I would say. The crop got better the next few years, and his race results has been better the last couple of years as well. So I wouldn't say that he can't do the Grand Circuit, but you know, in Ontario, there's Bettor's Delight, and after that, I think he's as good as any.
Well, listen, Sunshine Beach certainly isn't the only top Grand Circuit horse that you've had over the years. Hannah Hanover comes to mind, a great pacing mare. I remember some of her big wins on Hambo Day of the Meadowlands. But a trotter by the name of Majestic Sun, I think really took you to new heights as well back in around 2006. And we remember the great rivalry with Glidemaster as far as Canadian colts that year. We were certainly right at the top of the sport. Majestic Sun, was he something special, or when did you know training down that you had something that was going to be a little bit better than the average colt?
Yeah, no, like Sunshine Beach and Hannah Hanover were very nice horses, but Majestic Sun was a special horse. Like, he just had something that the real special horses have. I personally, I never know if my horses are going to be great horses until after they've had a few starts into them. And he basically trained down nice, but I never knew that with him either. Until I got him in Georgia in the first or second start. He made a break. He got interfered with a whip in the face in the last turn, made a break, got way back in the last turn, still came flying in the end. I think caught a fourth or a fifth. And I come off the track, and I said, Sean was grooming that night, and I said, Sean, I think this guy's pretty good. So I think we requalified him, took him to Myra. I drove him myself, or Grand River, drove him myself, and win. Paul McDonnell was in the race. I said to him after the race, I said, will you drive him in the final for me next week? He said, gladly, and he did, and he set the track record the next week. And from there, he just got better and better. Unfortunately, Paul couldn't drive him after that because he had Was It a Dream? But Rick Zeron drove him the rest of the year, and we beat Glidemaster a few weeks after that. And he just even at 3, he didn't just beat them; he beat them by a lot most of the time. I drove him myself once and beat him by many lengths. That's how good he was.
Well, listen, we're going to take a look back now to that 2006 Breeders' Crown. It was held at Woodbine Racetrack, and billed as a showdown between Majestic Sun and Glidemaster. Can you quickly set it up for us as we pick them up behind the gate? What your expectations were going into the race that night?
Yeah, he wasn't. This was late in the year, and he was getting a little sorish at this time, so I just wasn't sure because he had the reputation the odd time of making a break. So I was just hoping he was sound enough to stay at it and give a good effort. And he was used many times in this mile, and he fought tooth and nail right to the wire. The weather wasn't very good this night either. It was I think it was very windy and rainy that night, if I remember right.
All right, here's Ken with the call of that 2006 Breeders' Crown.
And O'Donnell will take back through a quarter in 29-1, and Richie Clears now putting Majestic Sun in charge. But up on the outside into second now, rallies up, here comes Herbie. In at the rail third, Berto Primo at the rail fourth, RC Royalty, Glidemaster fifth, gapped out 3 lengths, sixth at the rail is Make You Mine. Further back seventh at the inside to Blue Mac Lad, then it's Global Glide and Swan Image, and the trailer is Algiers Hall. Clearing off the front and opening up a quick 2 lengths, it's Here Comes Herbie, who clicks off a half in 57-3 for Jameson, and he's expecting company. Here comes Trevor Ritchie right back around to return the favor. He's on the move again with Majestic Sun, who's been used multiple times in this mile, and he'll be pressed once he clears to the lead because hot on his heels comes the Hambletonian winner Glidemaster. And here comes the battle. On the inside, a short lead for Majestic Sun. Glidemaster on the outside in second, trots up now for Brennan. In at the rail from in third is Here Comes Herbie. Backed up at the inside from in fourth is Berto Primo. 3/4 in a Titanic 1:24-3, a Breeders' Crown record for 3/4. And on the inside, Majestic Sun. Glidemaster on the outside in second. He got out of gear there for a moment, and Richie senses it. Fighting back at the inside, Majestic Sun. Glidemaster on the outside in second to the wheel, but he won't go past. On the inside, still Majestic Sun. It's Majestic Sun. He won the Good Times, the Trotting Classic, and now the Crown. It's Majestic Sun to win in 1:54 2/5. Unbelievable battle. I'll tell you what, you couldn't have scripted it any better. The top 2 colts went at it around the final turn.
We've been fortunate. We've had many epic races and battles at Woodbine and, of course, in recent years at Mohawk Park as well. But that was one of the best when you look back at it. Glidemaster, Majestic Sun, carrying the Canadian colors all season long on the Grand Circuit. Majestic Sun with the upper hand on this occasion. How fun was that rivalry in particular, Mark, that year where, both colts really had their moments?
Well, it was a lot of fun, actually. And, kind of teasing back and forth with Blair, when we were in retention barns and stuff and we were out grassing our horses, we kind of teased back and forth. But Glidemaster was, an exceptional horse as well. And, he showed that when he won the Triple Crown in the U.S. But, every time they faced each other, I think we beat them like 4 or 5 times. And that just shows how special Majestic Sun was.
And you heard in the call from... you heard in the call from Ken Middleton listing off the victories. I know that Glidemaster won the Triple Crown south of the border, but all the top trotting events at the Grand Circuit level here locally, he took home himself there, Majestic Sun. But the question I wanted to ask you, Mark, is, and of course, being in the media side of things is something that I notice, and that is when you're dealing with different trainers and drivers, everyone's got a different comfort level with the media. One thing that I think has always stood out about yourself and your son Sean is just how accommodating you are to the media. But when you have the spotlight on you, when you've got a horse like Majestic Sun or Sunshine Beach, do you feel a little extra pressure, when the expectations are a little higher? Everybody wants to ask you how the horse is each week, and maybe they're coming out taking photos. Do you enjoy all of that attention, or does it get to you at times and add a little more pressure?
I'm kind of I might not show it on the outside, but I'm kind of a nervous guy. So I get really nerved up before these races and stuff. And I'd rather talk after the race than before the race because I'm afraid I'm going to jinx it or something. And but I don't mind all the attention after the race when the outcome's already there.
Well, it's been fun to look back at a couple of your big stars from yesteryear, but let's focus on, as we wind things down here, on some of the new stock in the barn. And again, a really solid year for the Stacey outfit last season and taking home a Johnson Cup title. A couple of the young guns in the barn that certainly, I think, turned heads at times, one of them being Nightlife Sealster. What kind of a filly was she? Did she did we see the best of Nightlife Sealster last year, or is there better yet to come, would you say?
No, I'm really hoping, like, she's a very well-made filly, real good gait. I'm really hoping she's going to come back and be a gold filly this year. I kind of was, very careful with her last year. We did jump her to the gold once. She got a rough trip at Grand River, so we backed her down to the grassroots again to try to brave her up. I don't know what happened to her in her last race. She got boxed and shuffled back, and just, I don't know, just didn't work out for her. But she's training back really well now, and I'm really thinking that she could be, a really good gold filly this year, and you maybe even try a Grand Circuit race. You never know, but I think there's possibilities there for her.
Really nice gaited filly. I know that. We're going to get a look at her now in a moment. She won a division of the Eternal Camnation Stakes this summer at Woodbine Mohawk Park, and we'll take you back to that night. Really nice night at Woodbine Mohawk Park, part of the Grand Circuit racing there this summer. And here, one of the biggest wins of the season for the filly, and really a look at the potential that she offers coming into 2021.
Wants nothing less than a two-hole trip early as Andrew Day powers to the top. Vols Delight secured the pocket spot, crossed over third there as Nightlife Sealster racing along fourth, Game of Shadows, and fifth to the rail went City by the Bay. Sitting sixth, Audacious Hanover, trailing early seventh, Best Keepsake. They've ripped through a quarter of 26 and 4. They head to the backstretch. Andrew Day racing a little bit greenly on the front end there as McNair shakes her off the line and gets her attention on the way to 3/8. Second to the outside drives Nightlife Sealster now as McClure sensing front end could be in a bit of trouble, so he's on the move right now. Nightlife Sealster trucks to the front and she'll take command going up to the midway point. Andrew Day is back in that pocket spot from in second now. It's a gap of 2 lengths. Third, Vols Delight. Fourth inside to Game of Shadows. City by the Bay fifth. 2 more, Audacious Hanover trailing his Best Keepsake. 55 and 2 the first half. Pace is strong up front for the rookies. Nightlife Sealster leads to the far turn. Andrew Day is sitting second. Third inside to Vols Delight. Now outside fourth with a rush comes City by the Bay. Audacious Hanover tracks cover well from in fifth. Sixth outside comes Best Keepsake. Shuffle the last Game of Shadows, and they're ganging up on Nightlife Sealster now. Here outside City by the Bay. Audacious Hanover with a golden toe outside to third. Andrew Day locked up fourth, 3/4 in 125, and they're into the stretch. On the lead is Nightlife Sealster. City by the Bay second to the outside. Audacious Hanover's launched off cover. Vols Delight looking for racetrack, ducking and diving. Way out wide, closing up his Best Keepsake. Game of Shadows, grandstand side. 6 fillies across the track in this Eternal Camnation opener. Trying to close, but locked on a line late. Best Keepsake, and it's Nightlife Sealster to win. Nightlife Sealster over Audacious Hanover in 154 and 3.
All right, so one of the richest paydays of the season for Nightlife Sealster takes home the lion's share of the $75,000 purse. And does it on the front end and holds off all challengers on this night. So a limited campaign, and one that Mark says he has high hopes for this season coming into 2021. We're going to talk a little bit about who you've got your eye on coming into the season, Mark, and that brings us to our first question of the night. Don Liska wanting to know if you have any early predictions for your Battle of Waterloo potential horses, or maybe just your 2-year-olds in general, Mark. Any babies at this early stage that are separating themselves, or is it too early?
No, for me, it's too early. I do have a few pacers that will probably be eligible to that, but for me, it's too early to know right now. As I said, even with some of the good ones that I've had, I really didn't know that they were going to be top horses until after they got behind the gate a couple times. But I do have some pacers that are moving along nicely right now, but I can't predict anything right now on them.
Obviously, everybody has a favorite race. I guess Don Liska really enjoys the Battle of Waterloo. But for yourself, Mark, you've raced in most of the top events in our sport. Is there one race that's at the top of your list that's the one that you really want to make sure that you take home before your career is done?
Yeah, well, obviously, I'd love to win the North American Cup. That's right at home, basically. And but Little Brown Jug's always been a race that I wouldn't mind being in. But the race of races is the Hamiltonian. So if I could just pick one, I would say someday I'd like to win that Hamiltonian. I had the chance with Majestic Sun, but unfortunately he wasn't eligible, so we couldn't race him there. We did finish third with Harper Blue Chip one year, but it'd be the Hamiltonian if I could win any.
Joined by Mark Stacey, one of our special guests this evening. Great to have him with us. And if you've got a question, might have a moment or two to pass along one more to Mark before we wrap up with him. But, keeping on the theme of top trotters, you had a nice one in your barn this year in Wara Wee Whisper. In fact, raced in the lucrative first ever Mohawk Million. And interesting, Mark, you finished fifth there. That was the richest payday of the season for the trotter, $60,000 of his $131,000 on the season. So just your overall assessment of the year that Wara Wee Whisper had. Was it what you expected or maybe a little bit better?
Money-wise, I thought it was probably a little bit better. He's a very nice colt. He's probably not up to the real top colts, but he's very close. It was kind of debatable whether we should keep him around and try the Breeders' Crown or the Matron. But, it's an expensive journey to go there. And with the virus and everything last year, it just didn't seem to be in the cards with him. So, but, I think rested, if he matures, he seems to be growing nicely. I think we should have a lot of fun with him as a 3-year-old.
He broke his maiden towards the end of October, and he earned most of the money that he made this season, $131,000 in total. He earned that prior to getting that first win. He was probably one of those horses that you'd be surprised when you look to see that he didn't have a win just yet. But you went right in to the Millard Farms Trotting Series, and then it was Grand Circuit events right after. I'd have to say when he didn't have one in the win column there, you probably weren't pretty disappointed because he really showed a lot of talent. And tell us how it came about that he got to participate in the Mohawk Million.
Well, he raced in the Millard Series, and he raced against some of Determination's horses who were pretty nice horses at that time. And, he was holding his own, more than holding his own right there. And so I got a call from a few people that own shares in the Mohawk Million. And then I made a deal with Jim Bullock, and because he didn't have a horse to go into it. So I said, well, it's not costing us anything. So let's give it, we got nothing to lose.
Well, speaking of racing against Determination's horses, the replay we're going to roll now is from Woodbine Mohawk Park, a division of the Champlain Stakes, so Grand Circuit Company here. And you had to face Macho Martini on this night, and we'll take you through the race in its entirety here. Would you say, even though you didn't win on this night, you were second to Macho Martini, but hey, there you can see he's 1-5 on the board. So almost like a win in your mind when you're a good second in a race of this stature to a horse like that?
Oh yeah, no, we were very happy to finish second in them races. We were always close. One good thing about this colt is he was very handy getting off the gate. He could position himself well, and he could follow after that. And hopefully this year he'll have the strength maybe to just finish it off a little bit better.
And you mentioned strength. Have there been any noticeable changes in him physically? That's something I know trainers are always looking for from 2 to 3. What can you update us on that regard?
Yeah, no, he's actually grown some. He's muscled up some, and I think there's even a strong possibility that we might be able to race him without hobbles this year.
Well, that certainly is good to hear. So obviously the maturation process is happening with the colt the way you'd like to see it. So picking it up here in the final quarter, there's Macho Martini again. He's 1-5, and at this point in the season, he was right at the top of his game. So, to be able to take a run at him in the final quarter and at least push that one to the wire, certainly indicative of the talent that the colt has displayed. So we'll pick it up just over the final eighth of a mile or so. And he'll give chase to the end. And you must have been happy to see right in here, Mark, where you're not going to get to the winner, but your colt's fighting to hold second here for you.
Yeah, that's what I liked about this Cole. Like I said, he was handy leaving, but he also would follow as far as he's capable of doing. And he was always a trier for us, and you got to love a horse that tries.
I want to ask you just before we wrap up about your long-standing relationship with Landmark Racing, and I think most people might not know this, but you actually were involved in the formation of that group, and it's been around now for, I believe, 14 or 15 years. Tell us how that all got started for you.
Yeah, I forget which year it was, but just before the Landmark, I trained for the SBOA group there one year, and when that ended, Howard Pierce, myself, and my father were in the lunchroom at the barn here, and we just said, well, why don't we try something like that? And so we did, and here we are 14 years later.
And here to stay.
We've met a lot of interesting people. You know, it's really, really good program for somebody who can't afford to buy a horse themselves or can't afford to buy a well-bred horse. You know, they might not own as much of them, but they feel that they do.
And for someone that's watching that might have some interest in getting involved, how would they reach out to you guys? How can they get involved?
Well, it's very easy. You just contact myself, and I'll send them to Howard Pierce, or contact Howard directly, and just a phone call away or an email away, and it's very simple to do. And the great part I find about Landmark is, like, we collect the money up front, and you don't receive a bill. Like, there's no training bills. The owner doesn't have to worry about no vet bills, no staking bills. It's all looked after, in the initial payment. And so far in all the Landmarks, we've never had to go back and ask for more money. With the horses covered itself.
Yeah,
and we were lucky enough one year. We had Harper Blue Chip. We went right to the Hamiltonian. That was a big thrill for these people.
Yeah, it always seems like you've got good horses every year, and that it's been able to really snowball and keep rolling. And yeah, great job by everybody on that. So again, yeah, check them out online, Landmark Racing, and Mark Stacey. And Mark, again, a big thank you for taking some time to join us here tonight, and good luck to you and the entire operation in 2021.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
All right, we'll take another quick commercial break, and we'll be back with Rob Fellows when COSA-TV continues.
Or PC to watch and wager when you can't be at the track. Stream live racing from over 450 tracks. Bet with ease from anywhere. It's safe and secure.
Yeah, okay. So
get rewards, race alerts,
I watch
tips, and
downstairs
more.
now. I don't have to hang around
For
here.
a limited time, get $100 when you become a member. Plus, 1 month free live race streaming,
Thank
and your
you.
first bet is on us. Go to hpibet.com to join for free today.
Winback Farm of Ontario is home to 4 exceptional trotters. New in 2021 is Trixton, a proven sire of major stakes winners and the son of Muscle Hill. Archangel, sire of multiple Ontario Sire Stakes Gold winners and millionaire Guardian Angel Oz. My MVP, sire of 2020 Ohio Sire Stakes champion Perron, first Ontario crop of the yearlings in 2021, and Breeders' Crown winner The Bank, who stands his second North American season in 2021. For more information, visit winbackfarm.com.
We are back live on COSA-TV on this Sunday evening. Want to welcome everybody tuning in this evening. Wonderful to have you on board. Greg Blanchard, Mark McKelvey, and now joined by another guest, Rob Fellows. Rob, from his home base in Rockwood, Ontario. Rob, thanks for joining us. And how are things going for you here in Lockdown 2.0?
It's getting very boring, really. It's our days are the same as ever, but the nights are getting long. I'm catching up on a lot of Netflix stuff that I guess was made in 2015 and 16. But it's the nights are boring.
Now, how about the fact that you were racing right up till Christmas time? Now we take the break. We thought it would only be 28 days, looking like it's going to be a little bit longer. How's that impacted your routine with your horses?
Well, at first we shut them all down. We gave them, actually at Christmas time, we gave them about 10 days right in the field, and then started back jogging, 1st of January, and we've trained them a little bit last week, a little bit this week. We're kind of on a holding pattern, really. We really don't know what to do. I guess we'll get more information tomorrow when Bill will let us know. And once our owners know if we'll get some type of funding, they'll make a decision whether they want to keep them here in Ontario, keep them training, or whether they want to send them away to where racing is going in the States. I don't know. That'll be up to the individual owners.
Yeah, that's a good point, Rob. And we've already seen some local conditioners make the move south of the border. Many have gone to Ohio and other jurisdictions. I mean, how much time do you think you have, or can you answer that as an individual to your owners? But in terms of how long you can kind of hold out here before you have to think seriously about maybe reading some horses?
Myself, I will wait and keep all my horses here that I own, or if I have to get the final decision on, because this is where we're from, and we're going to have product to provide for our racing community when we come back. That being said, it's expensive. If it looks like the owners are going to get some relief, they will be on the hook, obviously, for the difference from what they get and what it costs. It's also expensive to send them to the States, and sometimes they only go one way. They race down there and they might not come back. So it's tough. It's a tough decision. Every ownership group, like I own pretty much a quarter of most of the horses in the barn, but it's up to the other owners. And if they own them solely, I understand, that they might have to move them. I understand that.
Now, obviously, we're uncertain exactly when racing will start back up, and we did go through that shutdown earlier in 2020, but overall, turning more to a more positive note, you had a fantastic campaign in 2020, a couple top stable stars that we'll talk about in a moment, but it was your best season earnings-wise since 2012. Maybe talk a little bit about the year overall. You must have been very happy with how things went.
Yeah, and I mean, you're only a tick away from being that much better, too. I mean, horse racing's tough. We have to get our horses, choose our horses and train them down and hope they stay healthy, they stay sound, they draw right, they get good trips. It's so much more than just, buying a horse and racing it. But it was a fun year last year. The 3 months shut down, and our stable still did about $1 million last year, which, for our market share for the small stable we have, getting 1% of the purse money available in Ontario, that was a good go for us, really.
That's a good way to look at it, Rob. You got 1% of the purse money available. That's pretty impressive. What about your own background? I mean, you're a veteran of the Ontario scene. How did you come to get involved in harness racing way back when?
Well, a long time ago, I grew up in Port Perry. We lived on Rosa Street. My parents told me at the end of Rosa Street was the fairgrounds. There was horses. Stay away from there. You could get hurt. So I rode my bike there. I got to meet, Ted Wilson, who still I train horses for today. I mean, we are partners. As life went on, I met other people from there, from Port Perry, and it's just gone on since then. I stayed in Port Perry. I left there. I went to Florida, worked for Keith Waples for a winter. Came back. My parents were in Kingston at the time. I moved to Kingston, lived there for a year, where I met Mark, Ted Huntback, Chris Storms, all the locals down there. I left there, went to Flamborough Downs and worked for Norm McKnight Jr. That was the next step, and then after a while there, we went to Toronto, worked for Tony Kerwood, and then branched out on my own in '86 when I got married. It was kind of it was just promotion every day. It was something different.
Yeah, so again, maybe a little bit of a different path. You worked for several different people, and I'm sure took bits and pieces from them along the way. Similar to Mark, you've got a son that's now opting to follow in your footsteps in the game. Is that something you fully supported? Did you try and steer him another way, or what's that dynamic like?
Well, he was going to go to college and go do something, and then when he decided that wasn't in his world, or that's not what he wanted, as long as he worked and worked hard, I support him whatever he does. I have 3 children, and they all have their own direction which way they'll go, and he decided to stay in the horses, and he's learned. It's not all good. He's had some really couple nice horses, and he's had some catastrophic things happen. That's the game. It can be cruel to you sometimes.
When you think back over the years, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I was just going to ask a little bit about, you talked about all the different stops that you made along the way and the different people that you've met. And that's one thing that we always talk about in this industry is just the characters that we meet along the way. Was there one stop that really stands out as one of the best times of your life learning the sport?
Well, growing up in Port Perry was great, but I guess I'd have to say Kingston was the best stop because that's where I met my wife. So if I hadn't went there, my life path probably would have been totally different. But it's I love the winter in Florida. In fact, the winter I was there, when I came home, I said I'd never spend another winter in Canada as long as I lived. But the only time I've been back there is for a holiday because life happens. And I really liked it with Tony Kerwood. We went to Roosevelt Racetrack. That was just so eye-opening for a kid. Like all the people that I'd read about in Hoofbeats magazines, they were there in persons. I was stabled on the back of Frank Popfinger, his barn, and what a character. I mean, like these were people that I read about from when I was a child. So it was fun.
And over the years, as we mentioned, I mean, you've been pretty steady, pretty consistent. You're kind of one of those, mid-level guys. You don't run the biggest operation, but you always seem to come up with good horses and be able to race consistently on the top circuit. But you've had some other endeavors, haven't you? Like outside the business, you've kind of diversified a little bit, maybe different than other trainers do. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I mean, when I worked for Norm McKnight, we always had horses for Wellwood in the barn, Bill, and I remember him telling me, he said, if you're going to stay in this business, go out and buy them you can't afford, because in the end, that's all you're going to have for your retirement, and it made sense to me. So we bought property. Like I bought my first farm, part of it in '86 when I first got married, and then. I've had a few other properties along the road. I opened up a self-storage facility in 2008. We have some other rental properties, and we try to diversify a little bit because this can be a tough game to consistently make a living in.
Absolutely, and probably a good thing, and maybe helping you, at times like this. I'm sure. Let's talk horses, though. Over the years, you've had many good ones. One that comes to mind immediately, Hyperion Hanover, was a favorite of mine at the time, and I'm sure of yours. Is he one of the better ones, or one of the best you've ever had in your barn?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he made $1 million. I mean, he was a great horse. We raced him from 3 right through till he was 10 or 11 years old. And he was the first horse I ever had to win a free-for-all or a preferred event. He was very good. Mr. James, SSG stable, picked me out of a hat somehow, and I got to train horses for him for a bunch of years. Great client, great horses, and he was a good guy. I mean, is a good guy. And the horses, before that I had a little horse called Hussy Chaser that I raced from 4 till 12. Again, a family favorite. He kind of, whenever we needed to make payroll somehow, he was the horse that came through and would earn it Monday so we could pay our help Friday. Those stories, you look back and they're great memories, but it's the part of the game that is a reality for most people that just race horses.
Well, a couple of real nice young horses in your barn from this past season. As we shift gears a little bit, let's begin with the trotter Logan Park. Tell us about him. Definitely a lot of talent, sometimes a little erratic. What was his season like?
A good season, and again, that's one of those ones that was almost. I mean, he raced. He put up some good. He showed that he's got ability. Wasn't 100% sound and didn't figure it all out. We've just started back with him the first of the year, and we're not training much yet, just jogging and exercising. He's filled out. I mean, he seems sound. We put him away sound. So hopefully, if he is more mentally mature this year, he could have a nice year. He acts like a nice horse.
You had Louis Philippe Waugh driving them all season long. How did Louis get along with them? Because, like you said, the maturity's going to come there, but you stuck with the same driver all season long. And I mean, when he was on his game, those two partnered up very well, didn't they?
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, and Louis, the very last race of the year, he had an option to take the horse that actually won the race, and he stuck with my horse because he knew my horse was a little tricky. And loyalty is very hard to find in this game, and he stuck with us, and we weren't right, and I appreciate that.
Well, we're going to look at him here in his biggest win of the season. It was at Woodbine Mohawk Park, September 19th, his third from final start of the season in a gold division. And, he'd left a little money on the table prior to this season, Rob, as you talked about, maybe maturity or whatever the reason, making mistakes sometimes, being his own worst enemy. So it had to be really rewarding to see him put it together on this night, to see what he's capable of doing.
It's nice watching these races. Brings back. He was he did leave a lot of money on the table, but he does have a little bit of ability. I think he'll come back and be a nice 3-year-old.
And wanted to ask you, what kind of changes, if any, have you noticed in him in his downtime in the off season? Are you liking what you're seeing from him in terms of body language, at least, as you get ready to start thinking about that 2021 campaign?
Yeah, he's you see them every day, so you can't really say, he is obviously grew up a little taller, he's filled out a little bit, and on the track he's much more mature. He's acting more like a 3-year-old. Like, he's not afraid of other horses. He's not he's just maturing. So hopefully, if he stays sound, they're going to have to go faster this year. So he's got to stay sound, and if he gets through the year this year, hopefully we have a nice horse to race.
Just looking at that group that's going to come back for that 3-year-old, especially here locally in the OSS, I'd have to think it's one of the deeper groups we've seen in recent years. So to your point, it looks like it's going to be some battles out on the track here in 2021.
Yes, even that horse, the muscle mass horse of Brad Maxwell's, will finish second there. There was a lot of horses that showed flashes last year, and of course, I hope my horse is better than most of them, but they're all just a week or two away from having a good year too. The horses it's very competitive this bunch this year.
Well, he showed you enough last year that he can certainly play with the big boys in the OSS program, and who knows, like you said, that's the excitement of this time of year, wondering what might be to come as you look ahead to the stakes season, and we look forward to the return of racing. Again, Rob Fellows is our special guest, and if you've got a question for Rob, please pass it along, and we'll try and get that to him before we wrap up our segment. But we certainly couldn't finish off this segment without talking about the big pacing star in your stable from this past year, Rob, in Warrawee Vital. And a colt that really was flying under the radar, I would say, until about mid-season or so, and then suddenly emerged. Where did he come from?
Well, Warrawee Farms. But he raced in late as a 2-year-old in early that stake series in January. So I shut him down, was going to have him ready for, obviously the early stakes in May before the North American Cup. And then in March, he got sore on me. took a while to diagnose him and a while to treat him. And he, actually these races, some of the races he won, he would not have been in if they had went in May and June when they were scheduled. And because they were local, I mean, it doesn't make sense, but we qualified him. We raced him once. We were right in the North American Cup eliminations. He didn't embarrass him, but I would have loved to have had a couple starts under his belt. But as the season went on, he raced against those horses and held his own, and we raced him through to the Breeders' Crown. And he actually just came home tonight at about 6:15. He got home at my farm tonight. He was down in Maryland for the last 3 months, turning out, just maturing. So it'll be fun bringing him back for this year.
Now, following up that NA Cup elimination, then he went on quite a tear. To your point, off the layoff, second start in the Cup eliminations, and smaller fields this year, very competitive group that was battling for those spots. But like I said, 3 starts in a row here locally after the NA Cup eliminations. He posts some big victories, including a couple of Grand Circuit scores. What point coming out of that North America Cup elimination did you know he can still go with the big boys? Were you feeling it all along, or was it the couple weeks after when he rattled off a couple wins that your confidence level must have got really high?
Well, he was staying sound and healthy, and I mean, he's bred to be a good horse, and he acted like a very good horse training. So, but he wasn't tight. He wasn't racehorse tight. You can't train them race ready. You can to start in a qualifier or a maiden, but to have them ready to go off of not a lot of training into that type, he needed those races. We didn't, and he got better and better and better. You don't know until you race against them, but they were, last year, Tall Dark Stranger, he was, probably one of the best horse we've seen probably since, Betting Line maybe, or for sure Captain Treacherous. He dominated the year and deserved all the awards he got last night.
All right, well, let's take a look back to one of the big victories from this past year with Warwi Vital. The week prior to this, he won the Simcoe. He had a perfect trip that night, a pocket trip, and he exploded in the stretch to win. So this was really, I think, a further test for him to really show, okay, this colt, he looks like he could be something special, and how legitimate is he? Well, he shows it on this occasion, Rob. This is the Some Beach Somewhere Stakes, and after winning so impressively the week before, Trevor a little more aggressive, maybe a little more confident handling with him, and puts him right on the engine with some good ones chasing. So did he show you even a little bit more in this race than he had prior?
Well, he was getting fitter, and the fitter they get, the more they're going to be able to go with those horses. But I mean, he was 3 to 5. We were kind of, I'm not going to say you ever expected, but he was racing good going into this race. You expected him, and he got a little bit of respect on the front end here, and but he beat them because he was that particular night. Everything was working. He got the trip, he got fractions. He had control, and he was healthy and sound, and that's when horses will give you their big efforts.
All right, and you've got a good one on your back. Captain Barbosa, certainly no slouch, and tracking your colt, and it's going to come down to a final quarter sprint. So let's take another look at it. A 1:48 and 2 Sizzler on this night from Warwi Vital.
Captain Barbosa from the pocket spot now fires his best shot. He's out and driving after tempo setter Warwi Vital. Warwi Vital sprinting to the end. Outside is Captain Barbosa, still 3/4 of a length away. Warwi Vital, Captain Barbosa with a late push. It's Warwi Vital withstanding that late pressure to win by 1/4 of a length as he sizzled home in 1:48 and 2. A stakes record performance for Warwi Vital in the Some Beach Somewhere.
26-second
Yeah, it was
final
kind of impressive, wasn't it?
Back half 53 and 2, and to hold off a legitimate, really nice Grand Circuit colt in the process. So from here, you started to think south of the border and a few trips there, and one of those we're going to show in a moment, a trip to Lexington and the Red Mile. And here he is. Good look at him coming back into the winner's enclosure on this night. So you said he's just arrived back, and how does he look?
Oh, he looks great. I mean, he come off the trailer. We put him back in his own stall, and of course, he was kind of let everybody know he was back. And he went right to the water pail, right to hay, right to feed. No temperature. And now we'll start. We'll get shoes on him tomorrow, and because he'll need corks up here, and get him back to a schedule, and hopefully we have him ready by whatever I don't know what the season's going to bring, but hopefully there's some 4-year-old graduate series before May, I guess, and then they come here. I mean, with border crossing and everything else this year, who knows what's going to happen? But once the stake schedule comes out, we'll kind of pick our spots, where we want to go, what we want to do, and we'll take it from there. The horse will let us know when he's ready, but it's a long season. A lot of we'll worry every time he walks out of his stall, because that's what we do with these horses. Every day you walk out in the barn in the morning to feed them, and you worry about every horse. It's what we do. It's just, it never stops.
Absolutely. Let's take a look back at this race from the Red Mile in Lexington. October 11th was the date, and this certainly was going to be a big test for your colt and everyone else in the race. You came up against Tall Dark Stranger in this division. But it's a good measuring stick, right, to see where you do measure up against the very best in the division, and one of the best, as you mentioned, that we've seen in a long, long time. And on this day, they're going to go a pretty big mile as well. So set it up coming into the race, Rob. What kind of trip you were hoping for from the colt, or how you thought you could ever beat Tall Dark Stranger, if it was going to happen?
Well, I mean, everybody, no one knew how to beat him, and everybody was taking different shots. I think that's Cattle Wash on the front end. He'd be coming off the 46-4 win the week before. So, I mean, you're hoping, I was hoping he would have parked him a little further, but, he wanted to rest up so he'd have a little bit of fuel left in the tank. It was, this year in Lexington was very kind of damp and cold and rainy. It wasn't ideal weather, but the horses still went remarkably fast for the weather they had down there this year. Here, Cattle Wash, I mean, that first little bit, we ended up beating them later, but, what do? Do you come first up on the best horse in North America? That's Tim's decision. My decision was to get him to the paddock on time and not be late,
And
here we are coming.
That's exactly what's going to happen. But I mean, you're sitting third, and you've got about a quarter of a mile to go. So, and I'm sure your colt felt really good at this point in time. And he does make a really impressive, menacing move. But unfortunately, not the first colt to do that and get up beside Tall Dark Stranger and get rebuffed. But if there's a silver lining to this, your colt holds off a host of other challengers to finish a really good second.
Yeah. I mean, it was, it was a good field of horses. That was a lot of nice 3-year-olds. They were overshadowed, of course, this year because there was one super, super good horse. So, and it's too bad that we lost Poppy Rob halfway through the season. Maybe it was good for us, but it was good. That was a nice horse. It would have been nice to watch him race till the end of the year too.
The week before, though, you had victory in 147 and 1, Rob. Just talk about the emotions on that day to be able to send a horse out in a Grand Circuit event, have them take a mark like that. That had to be pretty special.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I've gone to Lexington ever since I can remember, and you're down there, you're racing, your horse just won, and I wish my family was here. My wife was with me, but it was kind of a weird year. Like no fans, no people around. It was like winning a qualifier really fast. Like it was not the pomp and circumstance that you would have liked to have accompany winning a Grand Circuit race at Lexington. But, it's still, he's still, obviously the best horse I've ever trained. And I'm looking forward to bringing him back this year to race. So
that was going to be my next question. I thought I knew the answer to that. But a long way to go in the money department to match some of the best you've had, like a Hyperion Hanover. So with that said, you've got to be chomping at the bit for this year and hoping things fall into place with the horse. I was going to ask you how you're going to map out his schedule this year. wanted to ask you about what we read recently as well, and that the horse is going to be doing some double duty. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I've got a couple partners on him, obviously Blair Corbeil and Murray Cox. So we decided, like, they have some brood mares and they want to breed them. So we thought, we'd breed a few mares, maybe 15 or 20 this year. And we just put it out there. And so far we've had a lot of response of people, but we're going to be keeping them in training. So collecting them, we'll be able to collect them a couple times a week. I've never done this. I don't really know what's all going to be involved. I'm sure I'll be in over my head come springtime when I should be training something at Mohawk. But yeah, we're going to breed a few mares. We've had lots of people looking and kicking, so yeah, as long as he doesn't make him, we test bred him there, and he's a kind of a laid back horse. So I've talked to a few other people that have done it, and they said some of the crazy horses it'll get them wilder, and he's not like that. So I'm hoping that I still want him to be manageable, of course, to train and jog and race. But yeah, we're gonna give it a shot this spring and see how it does.
And when's your return date targeted, or will you let him tell you?
He'll tell me. I mean, it depends. The weather means a lot to us training in the northern hemisphere. I mean, I'd like to get him ready for obviously sometime in May. I think the graduate comes to Mohawk. I think there's one before it, and then what else do we have for 4-year-olds? We have the race at Flamborough. It's local. We'll probably pay him into that. The one in Quebec, the Prix d'Été, I may pay him. We'll sit down with the other owners, and I think his forte is the bigger track. He's fast. He can position himself well. So I don't want to over race him. Of course, I'd like to race him in the Pacing Derby. It's right here in my backyard. I'd like to go back to Lexington with him. I'd like to keep him in the Breeders' Crown events. So when you add them all up, there are already too many starts. So we'll just let him let us know. 10, 12 starts would be nice.
Excellent. Well, listen, we are really excited for the return of him this year. We hope he comes back every bit as good or better than he was last year, and could be one of those really exciting horses to watch in 2021. So, Rob, thank you again for joining us, and all the best this season.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Rob.
Conditioner Rob Fellows joining us, and we'll take one more break. And when we come back, we'll sit down with Nancy Takter and Yannick Gingras. You're watching COSA-TV.
I imagine. I can't believe it. Wow.
Dark Horse. Download the app today.
Yannick's, yeah.
Harness Racing Update
that?
features the sport's most talented and provocative lineup of writers. Garnet Barnsdale, Dave Briggs, Murray Brown, Frank Ottolo, Ron Gerfine, and Thomas Hedlund, as well as Bill Heller, Bob Hayden, Dean Hoffman, Victoria Howard, Chris Lomon, and David Mattia, and also James Platts, Bob Roberts, Sandra Snyder,
Do you just have
Brett
that queued up
Stern,
on your phone,
Jay
or do you have to go back
and
look?
many more. See what everyone is talking about.
Yeah.
Subscribe to HRU today for free at harnessracingupdate.com.
And welcome back to COSA-TV, our final segment on this Sunday night. Mark McKelvey, Greg Blanchard, joined by a pair of special guests, Yannick Gingras and Nancy Takter. Welcome to the show, guys. Coming off the big night last night, have you been able to come down yet, Nancy, from Cloud 9?
Yeah, it was a great night last night, obviously, with all the horses getting their awards and everything. It's nice to that my team got recognized the way they did. And, it was a tough year, but it was nice that everything kind of panned out the way I'd planned for it. So.
All right. Well, let's just recap the night
ahead,
that
Greg.
you had here. Sorry, Mark. Let's go through it. Tall Dark Stranger takes home 3 trophies. Overall Horse of the Year, the big one. Pacer of the Year, 3-year-old Colt Pacer. You've got Kissin' in the Sand winning for older female pacers. Manchego, of course, older female trotter. Even taking home Broodmare of the Year with JK She's a Lady. And you put that all together, and that gets you a Trainer of the Year title as well. I mean, that's a night that's going to be hard for anyone to duplicate. And maybe we'll ask Yannick this. Nancy's probably trying to absorb it all, but in your time in the business, Yannick, there have been very few nights that could match this in terms of year-end honors.
Well, no doubt about that. She's had a great year. It's all the hard work. She's worked hard all year, and there's only a few trainers really in the history that's had years like those. Her dad, obviously, he's had many great years. Ronnie, same thing, and maybe like even Linda Toscano, the one year like she had market share in Chapter 7 and stuff. So, but those are very few in betweens, and it's all the credit goes to Nancy. She works really hard, and I think she deserves it.
That's like the nicest thing he's ever said about me. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but she does. I see her work all the time, and I'm at the barn a lot with her and stuff, and I know I'll organize and everything is always it's never left to guessing or to luck or she of course you need luck, but she does her homework, and the good things come at the end.
Well, Nancy, though, you were voted the Trainer of the Year unanimously. You got all of the top votes for Trainer of the Year. That was the only award we already knew the results of before last night. What does that mean? Because, over the years, there's been a lot of dominant seasons put together by trainers, but the fact that everyone voted for you, that speaks volumes to just the season that you had. That had to be a pretty cool feeling when you found out.
Yeah, obviously that's a really cool feeling. I guess it kind of means that there was no doubt in it. So, unanimous is always great, I guess, but just the recognition that people actually saw all the hard work that me and my team put out is it's very rewarding for sure.
Well, you talk about your team, and obviously you've got a great team. Tell us who they are. Who are the key players, and what's their background, and how does it all come together for you?
So, Joost Fonseca has been a huge part of my team. He ran the whole operation up in Canada this year, which was extra messy since I myself could never go to Canada. I ended up telling Joost maybe, 3 or 4 days before the Hambletonian, just so you have to leave the day before the Hambletonian to go up to Canada to quarantine for 2 weeks so we can race Tall Dark Stranger in the North American Cup, because you will be out of quarantine that Saturday afternoon or Friday afternoon, in order to put him in detention that night. So he never complained a minute about it, and he was like, all right, that's what we have to do. And Hambletonian Day down here is a big day. I think we had 16 horses in that day, and Joost worked hard all year too. He wanted to see Sorella win the Hamble Oaks, and the other horses, Stranger ended up winning the Cane Pace that day. And, so he missed out on that big day just to go up there and kind of sit by himself for 2 weeks. So a big thanks to him. Everything ran smoothly. I can completely trust him with that. My other trainers, what I end up doing, the first part of the year is kind of easy when most of our races are in the tri-state area. But once, August rolls around, we have horses in Canada, horses in Lexington, horses in New Jersey, and this year we had horses in Buffalo. So I end up just traveling around in circles. But, Christian Lynn took care of the team in Lexington. Elfido Soto and Nicholas Kirk Anderson took care of the team in New Jersey. So, big, applaud and thanks to them for managing everything while I just kind of flew around in circles and made sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing. And then the caretakers, for sure. Every single one of my caretakers they love their horses. We work long days. We're not a barn, where you're in at 7 and out at 11. There's people in my barn until 5 o'clock at night every night. So big thanks to all of them too as well.
Awesome. Well, that's that's great, and yeah, it's nice to recognize the hard work. You're the face of the operation, but obviously a ton of work behind the scenes to to turn it into the kind of night that you had last night. You talked about Yosert having to quarantine here in Canada for a couple of weeks. It's not that bad, and Yannick can speak to that. He made a decision to come up here, and I guess it's safe to say, Yannick, really the whole reason for that decision was a colt named Tall Dark Stranger.
I'm pretty sure, the 14 days, but I'm pretty sure my 14 days quarantine, even though I didn't have to do it, but I still stayed there, was a lot nicer than Yosert. So the spot that Marvin Katz got, and then the rest of the owners as well, it was a sweet spot. So I got to enjoy Lake Simcoe. So I can't compare my quarantine to his, like what Yosert had to go through. And I raised my hat to him. It was definitely not a lot of fun. It was more work than pleasure for him. It was more pleasure than work for me. So as far as Tall Dark Stranger, no doubt about that. He was the number one reason, and most likely the only reason. If it wasn't for him, even though I had a good run in Canada, I wouldn't have gone. The chance of winning the NA Cup is the reason why I went to Canada. So I'm glad I did.
Well, it paid off in spades, and let's take a look back at it now. We'll show you the race in its entirety. This is the $1 million Pepsi North America Cup, raced on a different date this year. It was on August 29th. Typically, it's a June event at Mohawk Park. And Tall Dark Stranger, no surprise, he was heavily favored on this night, and few anxious moments for the Colts. Once again, here's Ken Middleton with the call.
Is Captain Midnight. Down to the rail is Captain Kirk. Denali Sealster Wrights parked out 8th going into the turn. Further back we go to find Odds on Cyrus. He's in a traffic jam early. Got away poorly from the second tier. And the early trailer is Captain Barbosa. Quarter 25-4. Tattoo Artist to the front. Tall Dark Stranger took a brief tuck, but Jingra is quickly on the outside, sweeping up to grab command at 3/8. So it's Tall Dark Stranger to the lead now. Back into second is Tattoo Artist. Moneyman Hill third, Mayhem Hanover fourth. On the move out of fifth, Alleywag Hanover starts up here for Wah. Going to grab his covers, Captain Midnight sixth outside. Seventh into the flow is Captain Kirk, scooting through his Odds on Osiris at the rail. Then Denali Sealster and trailer Captain Barbosa, 53-3. A big first half as they travel into the final turn, chasing Tall Dark Stranger, who leads it by a length and a half with 3/8 to go. Tattoo Artist in that pocket spot is second. Moneyman Hill is third. Inside trip fourth for Mayhem Hanover. Off stride around the turn, Denali Sealster. Alleywag Hanover fourth outside. Set to go 3 wide off his covers, Captain Midnight. 3/4 in 1:21, and they spin home. And it's Tall Dark Stranger on top, the lead just over a length. Here from the pocket spot, breathing fire is Tattoo Artist now. Tall Dark Stranger put to a drive by Gingras. Tattoo Artist on the outside, trying to get to him. Tall Dark Stranger at the inside. Tattoo Artist is second. Tall Dark Stranger answers the bell and wins the Pepsi North America Cup by 2 lengths over Tattoo Artist. Up for third was Moneyman Hill. Odds on Osiris up the inside fourth in 1:48-2.
Wow. That performance, one that stood out, of course, as part of the Horse of the Year campaign for Tall Dark Stranger, winning the Pepsi North America Cup. 2 in a row for you, Nancy, following up Captain Crunch a year ago. But for you, Yannick, the NA Cup wasn't really your race. You'd had some struggles in it for quite some time until you finally got into the win column here. I know this race meant a lot. You've always wanted to win it. But how sweet did it finally feel to get the monkey off your back in one of the biggest races of our sport?
I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you too. This was probably one of my favorite races ever. By the way, it was a great question, Stu. But no, for sure. I haven't had much luck in that race, and but I really didn't have a good horse to drive either. Probably the best horse I drove in before was A Rock and Roll Dance, and he had a great 3-year-old season, but he wasn't super sharp at that time. But it was no, it was my first $1 million race. So like there was a lot of things in that race that was nice to come in and being able to win it.
Yeah, I remember how
Great.
emotional you were, Yannick, and you know, can you recall being more emotional after winning a race in your career?
Probably no. I maybe the British Crown would foiled again when he won in 2013, I believe. But this one was just different. It was definitely emotion, but it was like there was so much at stake. Obviously, you know, winning $1 million race for the horse, for his value. For the 2 weeks that I had to be in Canada, for like the kids being gone and knowing that I was not going to be able to see them for another 4 or 5 weeks. So it was like, it was all that, you know what I mean? You're trying to push it away. You're trying not to think about it. You're trying to, you know, focus in the moment, right? Like you're just going to drive this race like it's another race. And I think in the, like 99.9% of the time, I do a good job at that, being able to forget all the other stuff that goes around it. But this one was hard, you know? It really was. And if the week before you had to win by 5, you know, it made me feel a whole lot better. But even though I did think that you know, if I rolled him and he would be better, and I knew like racing back-to-back weeks he would be better, there was still doubts, right? Everybody, I didn't think they could beat him, but everybody else thought they could beat him, right? So I was a little scared of guys taking shots at me in the race, you know, thinking, well, he's vulnerable, we can beat him tonight, you know, and then. So that all of that came into question, and like when I crossed that wire, yeah, I was emotional. You know, there's no doubt about that, and I'm emotional just talking about it now because looking back at it, it was a big moment. It was a big moment for him. It was huge coming out. Like I think Meadowland Pace was a big coming out party for him, but even that day, I think he stamped himself as this like crazy special horse, and I'm real proud of him.
When you look back at that stretch of about, was it 5-6 weeks that you were up here? I mean, it was obviously tough on you being away from your family and everything like that. But assuming we never have to go through a situation like that ever again, how are you going to look back on that, you know, this season in your career in that 6-week span? Because it was unique, it was unusual, but it looks like it'll probably be one of those memories from your career when you get much older that you can look back on with a lot of fondness.
100%, honestly, Stu, because in the past, like growing up at home, I can't even keep a straight face. But no, honestly, like back in Quebec, like one of my favorite time, like racing horses, was at home in Quebec City. I didn't travel. We were there. Like Marc-André Simonal, Stéphane Brosseau, like Ghislain Paquette was there as well. You know, like it was time that you hung out with guys 2 minutes from the racetrack, and then you guys don't know how lucky really you are in Ontario. Of course, like, no, I'm lucky I get to drive great horses, I get to travel and all that stuff. But the camaraderie, like whatever you say that word.
Camaraderie.
Yeah, that you guys have in Ontario, like to be able to, like what used to, hanging out, and like I got to see a different side of you that, all right, I'll stop, Stu. But you know, like even James, hanging out with James and all the boys, you know, and Louis, you know, and I have a good time after the races. This is stuff that we don't get to do at home because we all live an hour from each other. You know, you guys live minutes away from each other. So this is a fun part. It was actually, we made the best of it. Obviously, it's not something I want to experience again as far as being away from my family, being away from the kids. But we did have a good time, and it's something that I will remember in a positive way.
Yeah, and it's so different, everything we're doing, and not being able to celebrate those races the night of like you typically would. And I think that was mentioned even last night, Nancy. A little bit different. Like you would have loved, I'm sure, to have been at a gala event last night, receiving those awards in amongst all your peers and friends. So I guess that's something we underestimate, how much we're all missing that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I guess the only good thing is I didn't have to write a speech. So I think I'm pretty happy about that one.
God knows it would have been a long one.
Shut up, Yannick. But for sure, you know what? It was a weird year because even like when we won the Hamiltonian Oaks, it was like Yannick couldn't even get all his family members in the picture because they wouldn't allow all his kids and Vicky to be in the picture with the horse, and just the restrictions, you know. I mean, we obviously had to deal with them because we were going through a pandemic, but if 2021 could be a little kinder, that would be great, because really I would like to really watch the North American Cup live this year, actually at the track and not in Brett and Stacey Miller's kitchen in Ohio. So definitely hope that things settle down a bit this summer for sure.
All right, we're with Yannick Gingras and Nancy Tactor. Nancy taking home most of the hardware last night at the Dan Patch Awards. If you've got some questions, pass them along. I believe we do have one from our good friend, Blake McIntosh.
Oh, what a surprise.
That's going to be a good one.
Fan at that. A good question. You know, he's probably having a little fun with this, but I think it is good. I mean, you can tell you guys obviously get along well, Nancy and Yannick, you're good friends, but it's also business too, right? And, there's situations where Yannick maybe has to pick another horse or times you use another driver. How does that dynamic work when the two of you are in such demand and so successful and have so many good horses in these big races? Maybe I'll ask each of you to take a crack.
Answer the question.
I can answer
I'm the best person to drive for, so it's really easy to pick my horses most of the time. No, just kidding.
No, she's actually pretty easy to deal with, honestly, that way. Of course, sometimes when I tell her I'm not going to go with one, but I think I'm pretty loyal. It's like her and Ronnie, really, right? So if I'm picking off, I'm not picking off most of the time for somebody else, and I do try to take the best horse. And the thing that worked for me, a lot of people ask me over the years why it worked between me and Ronnie and Jimmy, and now with Nancy. Like, it's got to be about honesty. If you're gonna say you didn't drive a horse, I'll drive the horse. If I say I can't drive the horse, then it is what it is. Like, but I think honesty is key. But she's understanding. She does not give me too much of a hard time. So, and I respect that and appreciate that.
No, I just send him a text, be like, you picked the wrong one.
Yeah,
but he does that all the time, so it's all right.
In the Breeders' Crown this year, I picked Where Are You Butte.
No, in the TVG final.
TVG final, yeah, you're right. TVG final, I'll pick Where Are You Butte over Picky Sneaky, and she sent me like, well, that was a mistake. But, I felt like I drove the other mare her whole life, and I just didn't think it was the right thing to do, to pick off. And I feel I'm okay with the decision. Of course, I was happy Picky Sneaky did well, and I love the filly too, but sometimes she'll give me a little dig, but that's fine.
Talking about pacing mares, Nancy, a Kissing in the Sand. Wow, was she ever incredible to cap off this season? And things really seemed to turn for her when she came up here for the Milton Stakes. Talk about kind of what went right there and how that really set off what was just a great fall for her.
She started the year off really well, and she trained down great. She won at the Meadowlands in 47-4 with Yannick driving her, and then Yannick picked off of her. And then I don't know, she just wasn't really good over the summer. She's always all through her career had a lot of trouble in the summer with allergies. She just battled with allergies, and I know in Canada maybe it's a little bit easier to treat for allergies, but down here in the States we can't treat the horses at all for allergies. So she would really battle tough with the allergy part of it. So when the fall rolled around, she had less allergy issues. And, I brought her to Kentucky. Actually, I had brought her to Kentucky because Marvin was ready to retire her. And he told me, well, you could, and I said, well, let me just take her to Kentucky and see if I can figure out, because I was there myself. And we bring her to Kentucky, and Marvin's like, well, it's good, because if she's no good, you can just bring her over to Kentucky and a farm. So, one day I just put her in for she trained really well. I put her into a qualifier. I asked Dexter to come and drive her that day, and in the qualifier, and he's like, she was good. She was really, really good. And my original plan was I was just going to try to race her in the Open in Dayton and see if she could get a race and get her kind of going again. But Dex was like, no, she was really, really good. And I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll send her to Canada for the Milton. So I called Bud Hatfield and Marvin Katz, and I was like, I'm going to send Kiston to the Milton. And they're like, are you sure? Is this the right move to do? Like, we don't want to cheapen her at all. And I'm like, no, like, she's ready. She's ready to go again. And so I called Jody and asked him if he could drive her. And the rest, from that moment on, she was just great. So, I don't know, maybe Jody woke her up. I don't know what happened.
Easy on Jody here.
But after after that, she was just super. And she turned a new leaf, and she got to finish her career, on top, which, everybody knows how special she is to me. So for her to finish that way is just really super rewarding.
Well, let's take a look back at that Milton Stake final. This was September 26th, Woodbine Mohawk Park. And really the start of an amazing role, an amazing second half of the season for Kissing in the Sand, where she absolutely dominated. Again, here's Kenny with the race call of the 2020 Milton.
Lines up, including Warwee Butte, she'll tuck 5th. Caviar Ally 6th off the speed. Boadicea from in 7th. Further back, So Much More. Then it's back to Philly Hanover, the early trailer Stonebridge Soul. So getting them lined up in a hurry was Alita Rose. Explosive speed off the gate for her. She's by the quarter in 26-1, and she'll take this field to the backstretch. Trillions Hanover rides the pocket spot. Up and at it 3rd, Kissin' in the Sand. As Jamieson pulls the trigger, here comes Kissin' in the Sand, blasting up outside. And at 3/8, she'll go after Lita Rose. Here comes Kissin' in the Sand, marching her way to the top now. Lita Rose accepts the pocket trip from here. Trillions Hanover 3rd, 4th, Treacherous Rain popping out as Warwee Butte from in 5th. Gingrel sit out there just for a moment, try and fish out McClure, and it looks like McClure took the bait. 54-1.5, so it's Treacherous Rain to come first over now. Warwee Butte gets a friend to follow out there from in 5th. Scurrying through at the rail 6. Look at the position Stonebridge Soul picked up. She was last to the quarter, now 6th at the inside, but she's run into a serious blind switch. Outside goes Caviar Alley into the flow. Backfield sees So Much More. Launched 3 wide. Philly Hanover stuck in traffic, as is Boadicea. Opening up a big lead here, Kissin' in the Sand, as she's got 3 on them now. At 3/4 in 1:22-1. Kissin' in the Sand, straight and strong as she powers into the lane. And she's clear by 4. Lita Rose back into 2nd. Trillions Hanover looking for some room at the rail. Treacherous Rain on the outside 4th. Deep stretch, and Jamieson is on autopilot late here with Kissin' in the Sand as she's wrapped up coming to the line. And it's Kissin' in the Sand, just as devastating as she was last week, maybe more. 1:49, Kissin' in the Sand in the Milton.
Well, I don't think we have. There we go. Go ahead, Greg. We couldn't catch you there for a second, so catch us up with what you were talking about.
Yeah, my audio was down, but I remember in the elimination, Jody drove her fairly conservatively, and she just was raging on the end, and really set her up for this, where she thoroughly dominated. And later in the year, we always knew she was very fast and a top mare, but she was dominating the best mare. So what a way to end the year for her. And there's of course the happy ownership group and Mayor Gord Kratz. And big win for Jody this past season here on the circuit as well. But now we've got to turn our attention to the trotting mare, who really had a similar story toward the end of the season in Manchego, Nancy. And on that note, we've got a question first of all. Why don't we get to that before we take a look at her Big Breeders' Crown win? It was announced recently that she was going to be retired, and then subsequently we've heard the news that she's going to in fact come back and race in 2021. So Justin wanted to know what the key factors were in that decision.
Kind of factored into bringing her back in 2021. Obviously, her turning a new dimension kind of at the end of this season, when we were able to race her more off the pace and have her pass horses. If she would have had to continue her career kind of always being everybody's target, would have been really tough to race another year. It's very tough for horses to always have to do all the work in a race. So just at being able to race her off the pace is going to be a huge difference for her. And then, like Barry, who owns the majority of her, and the rest of the partners, like, you're going to breed Manchego. You have very limited options with who you could breed her to. Obviously, you could breed her with Walner, who's, most likely going to be a great stallion, but it's unknown. And you have a great horse right now, so why not race her? I think that was kind of the biggest factors that kind of led up to it. And, 2020 was a weird year. Even though she raced great, a lot of the owners didn't really get to appreciate how great she was, with all the restrictions and not being able to go watch her race and stuff like that. So I think that everybody kind of just wanted, kind of to experience that maybe for another year. So hopefully she can deliver on that. But she's just coming back great, and she's a great filly. And she wouldn't let us pull that left hind shoe in the winner's circle when we were trying to retire. So she only got 3 shoes pulled. So I guess she was telling us something too. So
It was talked about today in Harness Racing Update. There was an article in there, obviously talking about all your successes in the Dan Patch Awards, but it was mentioned about the possibility of the Elite Lop. Is that all just depending on where we're at with COVID and the entire landscape across the world when you consider potentially taking her there?
Obviously the Elite Lop is a great honor to be able to go there and represent our country. It's something, I think that anybody would ever want to do. I've actually, even though I was born in Sweden, I've actually never been to the Elite Lop, which is kind of strange. Nobody ever believes that, but it's at the wrong time of the year for me to go. So I've always said the only way I'm ever going to get there is to have a horse to race in it. But I'm sure Yannick can tell you, just to be able to go there and represent your country is a huge, huge, honor and thrill. But this year's probably going to be a little bit of an odd year. So we're going to have to see how things kind of pan out over the spring, and obviously how she's training back and so forth. And then we'll have to make a decision then. I would say we maybe will aim for it a little bit, but we'll have to see how all the puzzle pieces fall into place.
Well, let's take a look now at that Breeders' Crown victory at Hoosier Park this past fall. And you talked about her racing from off the pace. And we're going to get a good look at that tactic here, and it worked perfectly on this night. And you saw that different side of her toward the end of the year. Was that something that you changed, Nancy, to get her to do that, or did she just sort of just mature and suddenly the drivers had the ability to do that?
Well, she had some trouble with her ovaries and so forth over the middle of the summer, and she was just kind of not happy with herself, and she was getting really rammy and hard to manage. Dex sometimes didn't even have any options but to go forward with her at that point. He couldn't give her a trip. She's got a really, really big gait, so it's a little hard to rate. It was hard when she was a little more willing to go forward to race her off the pace, because she would get into herself and interfere with her big gait. So actually after Lexington, I brought her back to New Jersey, and we, kind of reprogrammed her. I put an ear hood on her and a mini bit on her, and, I qualified her and just told Dex just race her off the pace, race her off the helmet, and see what happens. And, she turned a new leaf, and I think she still needs probably some practice at it. Even in the Breeders' Crown, I was, on the backside, I was like, don't double her up. I'm standing there watching the race, and I'm just like, don't double her up, don't double her up. So, but if she can learn to relax, I'll spend most of the winter and the spring just training her from behind and making her kind of learn to sit in a hole a little better. I think will be huge for her.
Yeah, and I mean, if she
Nana's going to have something to say about that.
Sure, I was going to say, if she can really add that weapon to her arsenal, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but do you think that could that prolong her career for maybe another year or two or three, or will you let her dictate that over time?
Well, she was supposed to be retired after her 3-year-old season, and we're going into her 6-year-old season, so I don't know how many times I can pull her out of retirement. So I think we'll just take this year, and we'll see how it goes.
And there you are, congratulating the winning connections, and Manchego, one of her many outstanding stakes victories over the course of her incredible career. What a great trotting mare she has been. And we're excited to see what she's going to bring to the table again in 2021, and especially now that she's even a little bit more well-rounded than we've seen in the past. And one thing we've seen, Nancy, tonight, we've got Yannick on here. Obviously, he your main pilot behind Tall Dark Stranger. Dexter became the main man behind Manchego. We saw Jody winning. So you're using different drivers. And I'll maybe throw this toward Yannick. The driving colony in general, especially now at the Big M. You've got not one but two McCarthys there now. You've got Dexter in the mix as a regular, yourself, Tim. etc. That driver colony seems like it's kind of back in the good old days. It's very, very tough. Is that a fair assessment?
100% it is. I hear people all the time say like, and no offense to any other place, you know what I mean? Like, I hear like the driving colony is great here, there, and everywhere, but I don't think there's no better than the Meadowland. I think there's so many, but there's great drivers everywhere. That's the difference. You know, in the past, where if you were a good driver, you take your shot at the Meadowland. Now, of course, you can stay in Canada. There's great money there, and you can stay in Ohio. There's great money there, and same thing with New York. You know, so like there's different places, but still, I still think the Meadowlands colony is number one. I think. If you take David and Timmy, and like you said, you have David and Andrew and Todd, and believe me, Todd is going to be right there with us. I think he's really smart and a great driver, and then you have many more after that. You know, Andy Miller, Corey Callahan, and I'm sure I'm forgetting many of them. You know, so it's a deep colony, like top to bottom, and but you know what? It keeps you sharp. I've always wanted to be like a smaller fish in a bigger pond versus being the big fish in a small pond. You know, so. I was not the guy to stay at a small track. I wanted to compete with the best, and I think the Meadowland is still the best place.
Nancy, earlier this week, or maybe a little over a week ago, you put out on social media kind of your lineup, your stable going into 2021. There were some new names on there. Maybe let the viewers at home know of a horse they should keep their eye on in 2021. Maybe one that we haven't heard a whole lot from yet that you're really excited about for this upcoming season.
I don't really know. Should I say?
You tell me a lot of them.
I know, but that's because I have to keep you motivated. I don't know. You know what? We have a really good group of three-year-olds coming back and 4-year-olds. There's some, really fast. He didn't race for me last year. I think he's coming back really nice and strong. He was very growthy as a 2-year-old. Obviously when you carry a $600,000 price tag, everybody would love to see them race a 2 and make, $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 a 2. But, that's not always in everybody's cards to do that. I think that he could really develop into being one of the stars of the sport. There's, Hill of Fame is a nice Muscle Hill colt that I have out of Shake a Carry that didn't race last year. I find that the Muscle Hills, some of them, the fillies are very precocious at 2. They have light bodies and are able to carry themselves well at 2. Maybe the colts are sometimes a little bigger and they need another year to mature. So I think they're kind of interesting on the trotting side. I don't know. Yannick was there training this week. You can ask him what he thinks.
Well, I'm going to say, it's not something that's going to be a big surprise maybe, but the horse that I would look out of her barn that maybe take a step even better this year is Ready for Money. I think that Ready for Money, started out the year really good last year. He had a couple obstacle, and then Canada came and he had more obstacle after that. I think, being by Ready Cash and the French blood in him, I think he's a horse that personally, I think as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and, maybe later on even, I think that's a horse that can take, leaps and bounds and can be hopefully become the horse that I think he is. And, of course there's a lot of good 3-year-old that, you guys don't know that I know that's what you're aiming for, but that'd be the horse if I had to pick that could take a big step next year and be Ready for Money.
You know what? I'm really excited too. It's not often that I get to bring back horses at 4, and I get to bring back No Losing this year, and Sorella, and JK First Lady, and Peaky Sneaky. Being able to bring those horses back at 4 and just seeing the maturity, both physically and mentally, on those horses, I think is going to be really exciting for this year too, as well.
And we haven't given you any time to think about this one, so you might not know off the top of your head. But in terms of a schedule here north of the border this year, and you mentioned 4-year-olds coming back, and we do have some 4-year-old only stakes races in Canada. Do you have some of those races like the Prix d'Été Confederation Cup on the radar?
Obviously we'll have to know how the COVID situation is and how easily it is going to be to go forward and, manage those things. Obviously I have both No Losing and Fortify. They're both the type of horses that could race in those types of races, and I think would do very well in them. But it's going to be a logistical thing. Hopefully the borders open up and we can kind of go back to normal life. That would be great, I think, for everybody. But, you know, it's hard. I particularly don't like to send my horses away. I'm very hands-on. I like to have my staff control the horses and know that the horses are as close to 100% every time they step on a racetrack. I think that's part of our success as a stable. There are not many stones that have not been turned over once, twice, or sometimes even 3 times before the horses step on a track. They're as close to 100% every time. And, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of capable people in Canada that could do that for me too, but I like my team and I feel like that they deserve to be a part of it.
All right. Well, I'm sure we can count on you both. You're both pretty active on social media. You'll keep us updated with your training reports, etc. And we look forward to seeing your brigade back on the track in 2021. It's going to be tough to duplicate what you did this past year, but you've certainly got another powerhouse stable coming back. Listen, thank you both for joining us, and want to wish you all the best in the upcoming season, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yannick Chitra, Nancy Tactor, our special guests here this evening. And we want to thank you for joining us tonight on COSA-TV. Hope you've enjoyed the last 2 hours. We'll be with you again in a couple of weeks' time with another edition of the show. And don't forget to check in with Ontario Racing for those folks in Ontario, and COSA on our websites and social media platforms this week for announcements and updates on what's happening here in the province. And until next time, so long from COSA-TV.
COSA, the Central Ontario Standardbred Association, proudly serving Ontario horse people with integrity and accountability. Collaborative, supportive, helping to ensure a vibrant harness racing industry. Lifetime membership is free and there are many benefits. Become a new member today. COSA, representing the interests of horse people racing at Ontario racetracks. To find out more, visit COSAonline.com.